Hello, my name is Tim Cech, and this is my video project for the rural economy of Alaska. I am doing the industry and traditions of the North Slope Borough area. The North Slope Borough is Alaska's furthest north borough, and it was established back in 1972, even though people have been living there for millennia. As of the last census, there were over 11,000 people, and this borough has experienced the most rapid growth out of any in Alaska. There has been double-digit percentage increases in the permanent population the last three census records, and it continues to grow. This borough touches the Arctic Ocean, and often flights can be had to fly to Arctic research stations that are in Greenland and other parts of the Arctic Circle. It is the largest county equivalent in the USA, being the largest county, borough, and parish in the state. The entire size of the North Slope borough is bigger than the state of Utah. Its capital is Utqiagvik, formerly Barrow, and is one of the northernmost towns in the entire world. The North Slope region is comprised of the southern, northern, eastern, and western units, the most famous of which is formerly Barrow and the famous Prudhoe Bay. The Inupiat people have been here for millennia, almost close to 10,000 years. And the recent incorporation of the borough as a territory into Alaska is just the latest in its very long and storied history. There has been a long-standing rich tradition of traditional lifestyles such as subsistence living, hunting and gathering, whaling, and there has been a focused push to share this information with younger people before it's too late. The borough gained home rule status in 1974, meaning that it is allowed all the privileges and legislative abilities not denied to it by the state and federal government. After the discovery of oil in Prudhoe Bay in the early 70s, the North Slope has a continuous influx of temporary visitors, and this area provides the borough with the majority of its economic funding and is a boon to Alaska's economy and overall. In many villages in the North Slope region, much like Alaska, more than 70% of households engaged in some form of subsistence living, whether that was hunting for blueberries, fishing, hunting caribou, that sort of thing. And 18% recorded that they used it for more than half of their available food supply. This was according to a 2003 study, and each subsequent publication of this Alaska Periodic Journal has highlighted the similar numbers. The impacts of subsistence living in this territory is important because it allows people to live in areas where there isn't set up industries and civilization in the way that we think of it. Now, there have been people living there permanently for millennia, and because of this tradition and this lifestyle, this has continued into the moderate era. You know, the majority of the population is located in the capital of the borough, Utqiagvik, and this means that there is much less of a strain put on the fringe and rural areas where people absolutely require this subsistence lifestyle to be able to have a good life and prosper. There have been conflicts with tradition. If you go back and you look at the 70s and 80s, in the US, there was a large push towards environmental sustainability. The idea of animal conservation was having a resurgence, and many groups disproved of the Alaskan Native tradition of whaling. And for a block of years in the mid 70s, that was banned. Now, this was overturned in about 1984, and ever since then, whaling has continued to be a closely held tradition for the Native groups in this area. At one point, there was restrictions on who was allowed to hunt with a quota system imposed. It was originally struck down by the Alaska state and the federal government as it was found to be racially biased in preventing anyone without a significant percentage of native blood to hunt. Now, there has been some controversy as many Alaskan natives are reclaiming their roots and say this part of our tradition should not be governed the same way by the state. A big point raised was that many of these practices are holistic in nature and have been done this way for millennia without adverse impact. So this is a currently ongoing battle, but the history and the impacts of this tradition can be felt in almost every aspect of Alaskan life, whether you're in the North Slope borough or not. Salmon, fishing, hunting for caribou, gathering berries, all parts of the subsistence lifestyle that make it so important. The biggest industry in the North Slope borough is, you guessed it, oil. After the discovery of oil in Prudhoe Bay in the early 1970s, this region has been an economic powerhouse, even rivaling the production of Anchorage's GDP per capita. There was a peak production of over 2 million barrels of oil per day in 1988. And while this figure has declined today to around 450,000, the development of the Pika and Willow projects, which are starting in 2026, have hopes that there is an expected increase in production by over 30%, reaching the year 2032. That would account for over 3/4 of a million barrels of oil per day. This revenue provides most of the funding to the borough, and the large part of the royalties go to Alaska to keep public works and education finished. With the recent push for energy independence by the current governmental administration, it remains to be seen what other projects will open up, as this money creates a lifeblood and a lifeline for the Alaska economy. It's important to note that the vast majority of the oil gathered in Alaska is not considered sweet oil like you might find in the Louisiana and Texas refineries, but is called heavy crude oil. Now, while you can't use this for gasoline, that does not mean it's any less important. It can be used in heating oil, motor oil, petroleum-based products, and gels, and is a crucial not only resource for the United States, but also provides a lot of opportunities for economic exports. Life in the oil fields can be challenging, as in the Prudhoe Bay area, there is no permanent population. It is entirely transient, with people coming in for their multiple week shifts and then leaving. Because of this, there is no permanent village or town set up in the area. And that has been one of the reasons why the population in this area has stayed small. Rural residents will often make the long trek to the station, and there are ample supplies to buy there with cash found elsewhere to get things that you can't find by trade or barter in the bush. It's a crucial lifeline for the people who need that refined goods that you can't get anywhere else. This impact of what does it mean if there are more people in the area is being studied by environmental and political scientists. And that is a question that still is not being answered to this day. There is hope from the local government that the expansion of multiple projects such as the Pika and Willow projects, could lead to a permanent town being established there. That would reverse the trend of Alaska losing population and could mean greater economic development for the state. Thank you for attending this presentation. I got to look at multiple resources, and it was really eye-opening to put this together. I have not personally visited the North Slope myself. I was limited to the coastal and interior regions when I lived in Alaska, but this was an eye-opening experience, and I'm glad to have been able to share it with everyone else. Thank you.